What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It is Tuesday. Big game week. SMU is one we had circled for a long time. We're going to bring on Ahmmon Richards. You know who it is. Former star wide receiver for the Miami Hurricanes. One of our most requested guests. So we'll talk the game with him. First, some folks are always ready to talk game. That's Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
Good morning, D. Very excited for today. We have Canes basketball media day. Get to watch practice for a couple hours this afternoon. Get to talk to a lot of the players. So, you know, we're obviously very excited about the direction of the program here in year one for Coach Lucas, but we haven't had a chance to. There was an opportunity to watch like 15 minutes of practice day one, but get to watch the full practice today. So that should be exciting. I'm ready to ask Saleh Al-Tuntaj about Doner Kebabs to see if he, you know, what his spots in Miami that he's found. So should be a fun day out there.
Some people like the Iskander kebab. So don't sleep on the Iskander kebab. You know, you can ask him which one he prefers. I was always an Iskander guy. But yeah, man, I'm knocked out. As you can see, beat up. I was almost ready to call the bullpen to hop you in. It had the World Series yesterday. Basically 2 games, 18 innings. Freddie Freeman walks it off. Ohtani reached base 9 times, 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 5 walks. Clayton Kershaw came with the bases loaded. Unbelievable game. National pastime, and stayed up to watch the whole thing, and now I am beat up. So need you to carry us today, Pete. You need to put it on your back like Carson Beck.
I didn't know. I thought you were talking about SMU. I thought you were talking about the Miami Beach Bulldogs, honestly.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, see, we got our boy Ray in the comments. He's caught on. He's catching on to my ways. I have in the title there, in the thumbnail, can we beat SMU? It's a question. He says we should change it to why we beat SMU.
All right. I like it with the exclamation point. Yeah, well, we're going to do a lot of SMU stuff over the course of the week. I've dipped my toe. I've watched a couple of condensed games. I mean, you know, they're opportunistic. They got some similarities to Louisville and just defensively a little bit, and then you don't look at them and you're not physically overwhelmed, but they play well in the red zone. They take the ball away. Their stats are there. I remember with Louisville, I was like, they got the stats, but they haven't played a team with size and real ability like this. Turns out they still made plays against us. So I think at some point you got to respect the team's ability to lock down in the red zone, to not have communication errors, to tackle, and then take the ball away, which that's all these things that SMU does against an offense.
Oh, so it took what, 7 games? 7 games for D Money to start to respect the opponent. I don't know, man. I don't like this. I don't like this one bit.
I respected Notre Dame, but then it was rivalry. I'm not going to be respecting our rivals when they stink. I'll wait till they're good. When our rivals are bad, you got to pile on. You got to take your shots when they're down.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know, man. It's interesting that this is the week because I'm looking at this SMU team and I think we're thinking of them a lot from last year's team. They lost a lot. They do not have anywhere near the same talent they had last year. Rhett Lashley, I expect him to have a phenomenal game plan. Expect him to work some points out of thin air, so to speak. But they don't have the same guys on the outside that Louisville had. They don't have, Chris Johnson is not Isaac Brown. I saw he got banged up a little bit last week as well. So, hopefully he's ready to go. I want to see him out there. But then you look at their defensive line, Elijah Roberts starting for the Bucks right now. You have Jared Harrison Hunt, who was a draft pick too. So
Jafari
Harvey, another one who was a really, really solid player at this level. So I think people are kind of having their mind, hey, this is a team with a lot of talent. You have a great game planning, scheming type of coach, Rhett Lashley, but just preliminarily watching here, I don't see the same sort of athletes across the board. So I'll be the one maybe to disrespect the opponent this week. How about that?
I love it. Yeah, someone, Kevin Dennis, said if Chris Johnson and Romello Brinson are threats, we are not who we thought we were. Yeah, I would definitely.
Brinson's a threat. Brinson's a good player, man. I think Brinson's gonna do something against us.
He is. Go ahead.
Chris Johnson, I'm a fan of as a player. I mean, has he really gotten going? I know he had a touchdown run like first week of the season, second week of the season. I'm a believer in him, long term. I don't know what it's going to look like this week, but I think Brinson's going to do something. So,
yeah, and look, at Chris Johnson, if he gets going, if it's just a race, he's the fastest guy in a race there is. So, lots of concerns. We'll break down the game throughout the week, particularly with Lance. We'll get really into what SMU does. That'll be on Friday, but we'll be talking to SMU basically every day, including with Aman. One thing I want to get to on the baseball front, I mentioned the World Series game keeping me up, knocking me out. Big news in Canes baseball as Sebastian Font reports that the Canes landed a commitment from the number one player in the class of 2026, Gulliver shortstop Jacob Lombard. Big-time athlete, fast as can be, great arm. He probably is going to go the route of, Carlos Correa, Christian Yelich, all these guys where it's quickly into the Major League Baseball draft and high up there, probably top 5, but makes the perfect game ranking look a lot better. And it does speak to what JD Arteaga and the program is doing, that the number one player in the country decides to commit to your program, right? They could, whether he shows up on campus or not. I mean, that's what happens when you recruit the absolute best players. LSU has their fair share of guys that go to the draft. They also keep their fair share, and then they go to the draft 3 years later. That's why they won the national championship. So you like being in the mix for these big time players. Here we go. I like this one from Canes Cat. He's coming to school when the lockout happens. Him and Gio, lockout season. I like what you're thinking. I like how he's thinking. Look, he's doing my plug for me here. OrchidMan is the GOAT. I agree. OrchidMan, he's out there day in, day out with that baseball program, man. He is locked in, as of course are the coaches and the players. But if you want to be locked in on your lawn care, your landscaping needs, be first class. OrchidMan, ORCHID Man, landscape artisans, Palm Beach down to the Florida Keys. Call South Florida's landscape artisans. They are not just going to make it look beautiful, which of course they can do. They're going to maintain it and do all the dirty work that you don't want to do. Sprinkler repair, irrigation, rain gutters, hurricane prep, landscape lighting, maintenance, tree trimming, tree stump grinding, and fertilizing. You name it, they do it at the OrchidMan, ORCHID Man.
How good am I, D? Look at this comment from Nick West. It's 8 minutes into the show, we have 2 comments about the bait. I don't know that we've ever had that before. the reaction normally comes after in the comments. So I did good today with this one.
You're the man. You're the man. Can we beat SMU?
The question probably should have been, will we beat SMU?
No, listen, we lost to Louisville, and they were playing terrible going into that game. They weren't locking into a top 20 ranking before they played us. They were struggling to run the ball. They were turning the ball over. They couldn't pass block. I mean, they had a lot of issues. Big Ben, my boy, saw him at the game. Said he chatted with JD. Good guy, has my support. Ogden and Cuvée going to be fire. There it is, straight from Virginia.
Question here from our boy Joel Warren asking about Caleb Gaskin's 5-star recruiters. We're talking about basketball here a little bit. He's announcing Thursday, Canes, Florida, Texas A&M. Looking good for Miami there, guys. Looking good for Miami. Texas A&M made a real push there. And, we'll see what happens officially here on Thursday when he announces. But, they feel good about it. And, I was all over that one on the Discord last week. So, guys, remember, check out the Discord.
Let me know, though, Pete, on Gaskins. I've seen highlights, right? I mean, he has the size. He looks like what we've been bringing in lately from a size standpoint. These guys are almost like football players. But the skill set, the projection, I mean, what can you tell us about Gaskins? So
the word on him is actually his best part of his game is his shooting ability, which a lot of people don't know. He's a real shooter, mid-range, to the 3-point line extended there. But I mean, he's very physically, you see what he's got. I mean, just talking to some people around the program, they think he's as good as it gets from a body type standpoint. Just how they felt about Shelton Henderson, which has seemed to come true here early on, as he looks like a freak of nature out there. But yeah, ideally a guy that probably is has a couple years of eligibility. I don't know that he's a one and done guy, but because from what I'm hearing, what Jay Lucas wants to do is he's recruiting high profile prospects, but there's an understanding that they will be here probably for multiple years, unless of course they surpass, what that projection is. But he doesn't want guys who have the mindset of, hey, I'm here 1 year and out. Like, he wants guys who are really understand, I have some development to do. He's not a finished product, but the physicals, man, are special with him. He's been dealing with a bit of a shoulder thing, a little nick that he's been working through. So we'll see how that affects him this year. We'll see how much he plays, and if there's like some element of rehab that goes on there. But that would be, he's a top 20 prospect, number 16, I believe, in the composite right now. So that, talk about a good start there. They're in the mix for a lot of top 10 point guards in the country. Expect them to land one of those guys. So beautiful start to the class if it can happen on Thursday.
Yeah, nice to get someone whose strength is shooting, right? Given the way that this team that we're going to watch here has been constructed, where obviously they watch shooting, but prioritizing physicality, size, defense first, and the shooting hopefully to layer on top of that. Gaskins maybe gives you all three of those things. His brother's a good prospect too, right?
5-star freshman in high school now. So he's got some time to go. Obviously you want everything to go well with Caleb's career. Then hopefully you can get Caden Gaskins is his name here. So yeah, man, basketball season's here. We got game 1 on a Monday or Tuesday. It's November 3rd against Jacksonville there. So it'll be here in Miami at the SCO. I will be out there, of course. And again, man, media day today, so keep it locked. We're gonna have a ton of coverage as always. As we get some of these plugs out of the way early on the show. Thank you to Aries Law for sponsoring all of the basketball coverage here on CanesInSight. Check out AriesLawPA.com. Schedule a free consultation. We got a lot of attorney, adjacent things here on CanesInSight, but this is estate planning. So will, trust, protect the people and assets you value most to plan your future. Again, schedule your consultation. You can do it virtually or in person. You see the address there, 2103 Coral Way in the Gables. So check them out, guys.
Green Run Baptist Church says, D, you need to stop being cheap and sign up for the Work Pete's Discord. I'm on there. I don't know what you're talking about.
He's on there.
I got to set up the questions sometimes so you guys can hear Pete's thoughts. But yeah, definitely sign up for the Work Discord, Peter Rees official Discord there. Yeah, man. So with SMU, I'm just gonna pull up a couple stats that jump out at me, because I'll say when I watch them, I don't see physically, especially without some of the guys you mentioned, Pete, some of those NFL type bodies that came from UM. I don't see the defense overwhelming you physically, but then again, Louisville, it was the same thing. And then you looked at their stats, and their stats were better than you thought. So I don't want to underestimate their production at the ACC level. But this stat jumped out: opponent yards per rush attempt. Great stat that shows your run defense on a down-to-down basis. Miami strong there, 2.9 yards per carry against, number 10 in the nation. But look who's at number 8, SMU at 2.7. Pittsburgh, who we played in the last game of the year, 2.8. So a lot of talk about Miami's run game, the efficiency of Miami's run game. I think that's a stat that is going to be very, very interesting to watch unfold on Saturday, because Miami certainly is not trying to run for 2.9 yards a carry against SMU. I don't think they will. Now, some of that gets these SMU games. I always found like Lashley's stats could get wonky because sometimes they run a lot of plays. Their games have weird flows to them. So you could see certain numbers looked different than you expect. Like I remember we never had, even though we had good offenses with last year, we never had a really high yards per play because he was running so many plays. But we were, they were scoring a lot at that time. But really, SMU, when you look at them statistically this year, it's their defense is carrying it. The offense still a shade under 30 points a game, but Miami, for comparison, was defense as much maligned at 32 points a game against better competition. So SMU really has been this year more of a defensive focused team. Takeaways, the ability to get to the quarterback, nothing that wows you just like from hey, there's a future NFL. Chris Bell, for example, right? On offense for Louisville, you knew that this was an impactful NFL guy, just took 2 plays, and you had to watch out. Of course, he made a huge impact on the game. When it comes to SMU, I don't see those necessarily obvious difference makers, but they're playing well as a team on the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, they have that scheme. And real quick before we bring them on, and I just wanted to point this one out right here. This is team takeaways per game. You see who number 1 was. I know we helped that number with 4, but they were ranked high before they played us, and boom, right there at number 2. Now, go ahead.
Go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
Okay, South Florida and Notre Dame also rank high, and they didn't necessarily do that against Miami. So a lot of this depends on the Canes.
I'll say this real quick, too. I think something that stands out with the defense, D, is we're not talking about the personnel, but the coach has been there since 2021. There's something to be said for consistency in terms of not having the turnover there at one of the coordinator spots. And this is a guy, Scott Simons, who was in the mix for Florida State's defensive coordinator job as well. So he's been a hot name. So this is, I think we got to give them credit there in terms of the coaching. So you got to expect them to have a good game plan.
No, and look, similar to Louisville, right? In terms of the identity of the offense is the identity of the head coach, right? And they know what they want. They know what they're trying to do. That's how they recruit the portal. Remember when Louisville got Miller Monster, we said that's a Braum guy. SMU is pretty similar. When they get some of our guys, we say, oh, that makes sense, right? So they have an identity. They recruit to it in the portal in high school, and they know what they're doing within it. We got Ahmmon Richards about to join us here real quick. I think the only reason I'm able to join the show after watching that 18-hour World Series game is because instead of drinking beer, I was on that BUZZN, BUZZN, drink BUZZN.com. All hang, no hangover. So you want to be able to at least make it to work the next day after an 18-hour game. Maybe switch from whatever beer you're drinking to BUZZN, BUZZN. That's drink BUZZN.com. 7.5 milligrams of real THC infused seltzer. You can order on the website. First promo code FIRST50 for 50% off, or go to Big Daddy's Liquors and go ahead and grab that in any one of those stores across South Florida. That's BUZZN, BUZZN. All right, he's ready. Let's bring him in here. I'm still, as we sit here, October 28th, all-time freshman leading receiver, University of Miami, Ahmmon Richards. How we doing?
I'm doing good. How we doing, man?
Hey, man, why'd Coach Dawson want to catch a fade with you, man? Talking all this run game stuff, man.
It's getting a little staticky out here, man. I love it, man. I love it. Hey, we need that type of fire, man. We need that right about now, man, because it's been a little quiet of recent. It's been a little quiet out there. So
for those who missed it, Coach Dawson had a press conference yesterday where he got pretty feisty with people asking him about our runs up the A gap and B gap, and gave the media a pretty sarcastic football lesson there. Mon, what do you think about that whole press conference?
I mean, I personally, I was smiling, honestly. I was like, okay, like he's trying to give a little bit more context to the why, right? He's essentially saying, he's going to stick with, what got us here in a way. So and to be honest, without trolling aside, I do understand like some of the talking points as far as like the A gap, B gap conversation for certain runs can just, naturally just bounce outside depending on how the defense plays it. Which essentially is the running back's got to get a little better vision at times, sometimes where there is opportunities, but they, sometimes just cut it up inside. So I honestly, I think it was funny, but it was a little bit informative for, some people who don't really know like X's and O's like that. But it was funny. I was laughing.
Yeah, that was the part where he was really fired up. With someone he was like trying to get suggestions on how to get outside. He's like, "What, should we run the option with Carson?" Yeah, genius idea. He was like trying, guys. He was fired up. But I mean, clearly he's hearing it. You know, there's definitely you got to keep that noise outside, right? I mean, how's that like in terms of like, because you were on some staffs that were pretty criticized. I guess every Kane has been. Like, what did you know about that while you were inside the team? Like when you know your coaches are getting criticized by your family members, social media, whatever it is.
Yeah, man. I remember we would hear, you know, some boos and stuff at times, especially, you know, go 3 and out a few times in a row type of thing, right? You know, the people want to see the offense open up. And, you know, I think the frustration just stems from us just having athletes just throughout the field and just feeling like sometimes it's not being utilized, or we're like not executing, as people would say and joke about. So that's kind of where it stems from. I think we all know that his team hasn't been playing like it's to its ceiling yet. And I think that's just part of the frustration where we've been waiting, right, to see like that full complete game of just dominance. And I know the potential's there because when you see us first quarter against Notre Dame and it's damn near 21-0, and we get ready, you know, to kind of steamroll them, you know, same thing with Florida where we jump out early. You know, USF, we did handle business, but you get what I'm saying? It's just like there's evidence on tape where we're like everything is clicking. And then, you know, as we get into like the ACC play now, it just seems to us and everyone watching with eye just seems like we're just like having a lot more miscues up front or in the run game. Sometimes just regular routine plays, as we would say. So that's just kind of where it comes from. But I mean, overall, I do understand his point where you're not going to just go full on, just switch the entire offense mid-season, right? I mean, this is what the offense is. Yes, you can add wrinkles, which I think we saw last game at times. I think we did a good job of adding on like that RPO action almost, you know, where we're running like the same dive plays, except we just attach Malachi Tony or Tony Johnson to a quick speed out, which makes the defense have to respect that play and not just crash, you know, on the run all the time. Just makes them a little bit more respectable and play it a little bit more fair. I mean, I'm cool with what I saw at that last, the end of the second quarter, I guess, all the way to the fourth. Like, I'm cool with that type of style of play. You know, I felt like we're not as one-dimensional, you know, a little bit creative. I think we had a few different route concepts out there as well. And then end of the day, it just, you know, we're executing. Another part of this, and I don't want to drag it, but a huge part is that on special teams, we actually had like actual life. That's what it seemed like. Punt return game, I know Mally, like he actually was able to get some creases, but stuff like that, like if you notice, like the momentum was starting to build after every single one of his punt returns, you know. Even Keelan Marion, he almost slipped through on a kick return, but like stuff like that kind of gets the offense in a little bit better field position. Defense obviously was holding their own, getting 3 and outs and giving the offense short fields, right? Creating turnovers, like that's what helps the offense. But when we're consistently 1st and 25 or whatever it is coming off a kickoff return, right? And you're starting, you got 75 yards of drive every single time. Like it's just difficult to put together those like 13, 14 play drives, like every single drive, you know? So stuff like that I did notice was a little bit of the difference. But you know, we'll see. My thing, I want to see what we do versus SMU personally.
Yeah, we were kind of getting into it a bit before you hopped on, Aman, and my initial thoughts just looking at them a little bit, and you know, they haven't had the best last week here, obviously losing to Wake Forest the way they did. That was crazy. D, you and I were watching that one at the Licking. We turned it off. We turned it to a different channel because we thought it was over, and then obviously the craziness happened there. But my initial look at them, Aman, is respect Rhett Lashley, of course, as a schematic coach, as a game planner. Respect their defensive coordinator, Scott Simons. But I don't see the same talent level. I think we are thinking of them a bit in last year's light and remembering, as I just said a moment ago, Elijah Roberts starting in the NFL, Jared Harrison Hunt, draft pick, Brashard Smith, explosive player that Miami could have used last year and this year. A lot of guys that aren't there anymore. And I just don't see the same talent across the board, especially in the trenches. But hey, I said similar things about Louisville. I just don't see them having a Chris Bell type, an Isaac Brown. I don't see them having that.
Yeah. SMU, they don't have like that same like almost firepower like last year. It seems like. I know they returned Kelly Jennings, right? And I think he's been banged up throughout the year.
Kevin Jennings.
Kevin Jennings. Yeah.
Kelly Jennings was the corner from Miami back in the day.
First rounder, yes, sir.
Yeah. So their team does look a little different. To your point on that defensive line, they don't have those guys that are like you say currently playing in the NFL right now.
Harvey, I missed Harvey too.
Yeah, Harvey. Yeah, so they're missing some guys. I think they have a good safety or two, one of the two, but overall, like I mean, the spread is what, like I think it went up to like 13.5 after being at like 10.5. So seems like we're starting to be the heavy favorite there. Like I said, I just want it to look a certain way. That's all I really care about. Even the last game for Stanford, like whether we won by 25 or 45, like I wanted it to look a certain way. And to be honest, like after halftime, it did. Before halftime, I was like, I don't know what the hell we're doing, not converting on 4th and 1s and, stuff like that. I'm like, it's a recipe to get beat, not just by Stanford, but just going forward. Like if you just carry that bad juju over right to the next game, sometimes guys aren't able to kind of get over that hump in a way, So when I saw, second half, third quarter, fourth quarter, how we're over, just kind of make it look easy in a way, I was like, okay, like that's the momentum I think we need as an offense to kind of carry over going on the road. 12 o'clock game, pretty much this team, SMU, is going to be playing with nothing to lose, right? I mean, whether they're 4-3 or something like that, they have literally nothing to lose besides try to end our season, because that's kind of what it is from this point out. Like teams are trying to end our season, essentially.
Yeah, no, and it's the whole history with Lashley and everything too. I know Lashley's going to want this one. That's just kind of how these coaches are wired. They want to beat their old teams. They always work, to the bone, but those type of matchups, there's a little extra there. They'll bust some plays out trying to beat this team. With Lashley's offense, this was, right after you left, but just observing while I was here in Miami, now seeing it at SMU, and what jumps out to you about the way that his teams play and his offenses play?
For whatever reason, his offense is always traveling. Like, I mean, I can think back to his days at Auburn when he was recruiting me. They always have some type of, action going on at offense. Even when he got down here at Miami, like the offense was pretty good. With Derek King, they're pushing the ball down the field, very creative. They get their tight ends involved. I mean, he's just a really good offensive coordinator, and I know he's a head coach now, but obviously he still got his hands on that offense. So I would expect, they're gonna score points. That at the end of the day, they're gonna score their points. I think you keep it within like 15 to 17 points. I think that's how we get the victory by that, like, what do you say, 13 or 14 points, 2 touchdowns. So but yeah, you got to respect Lashley, man. I mean, he did a good job here. Obviously, he moved on and became a head coach, but I always got respect for Lashley. Like, one thing about it, he gonna have offense. Also, their defense is low-key sneaky good.
Yeah.
At times they're not like trash or anything. Like, they have a pretty good defense. They don't have as much talent, but they still play like relatively good, like in that scheme. I'm not sure.
Well, their DC's been there for 4 years. He's been there since 2021. So that's what I just said. It's
how to hear that. Okay. So
yeah,
that explains it, because you can tell like it's just almost like plug and play, but they have the same like pretty good philosophy as far as like how to stop the other team's like offensive scheme. So I give SMU credit, like to that extent. Even if you think back to the bowl game against, or the ACC championship against Clemson, like Clemson really they're jumped out early on them, but at times like they were actually like holding their own, like doing their thing.
Oh yeah, they came back.
Yeah, they came back and they got stops in a row. So you can tell like that coordinator, like you just said, he's clearly been there, because no matter, it's kind of like no matter who's out there on the field, like they still have a pretty good system on the defensive side of the things where you just plug and play guys.
And I would agree with Josh there. Yes, it's a good team. It's a competitive matchup. Obviously, going on the road for a noon game, but this is a game Miami has to win and is rightfully the favorite. They've covered quite a bit for those who gamble. I mean, Miami, I believe, aside from the BCU game, which was Mario's boy, and he didn't want to run up the score, and then Louisville, which they lost, I think they've covered all their wins, I believe. So it's a 10. Yeah. It's a 10.5 point spread. So Miami, that's what you talk about the standard. I'm not saying you play to the point spread every week, but I think that's what people think is the separation between these teams, that you get a 10-point spread on the road. Mm-hmm. I want to talk to you about the offense, Aman, because I went through a dive of the numbers, and shout out to Orange Bowl Magic who compiled all these stats on CanesInSight.com. Let me just pull up his post. But basically, it paints a very clear picture of the offense, which I think is pretty interesting, and I wanted to get your thoughts. So you look at points per game, 32nd in the country, 32.2 points per game. This is only FBS against FBS, doesn't include like the FCS games.
Right.
That's pretty good. 32nd in the country, not where you want to be, but maybe it's because I've seen so many offenses at Miami that are ranked from like 50 to 130 that, it's not terrible with the points per game. But then you look at the explosive plays, 112th, 10-plus yard scrimmage plays, 104-20, 89th, 85th, 84th, 83rd, and 84th as you go down the line. So not a lot of explosive plays. Yeah. You are doing good in terms of like staying on schedule. You have your conversion rates, third down, fourth down are pretty good. Yeah. This is you look at success rate on offense, which success rate, we're 11. Success rate basically like you get 40% of the yards you need on first down. You get 60%, just staying on schedule. Mm-hmm. So between that, the completion percentage, the fact that you're not taking a lot of tackles for losses in the running game, it seems the offense is doing a great job of staying on schedule, but needs more explosiveness if it's going to go from 32nd ranked scoring offense to top 20. Yeah. How does this offense get more explosive, and do all those numbers correspond to what you're seeing on the field?
Yeah, a little bit. It makes sense. I think, to be honest, if it weren't for a lot of false start penalties just from game one to Stanford game, which I don't think we had, well, maybe in the early.
Yeah, first half.
In first half, right? We might have. So, I mean, if you really take away at least half of those, I'm sure like those numbers are probably bumped up a little bit because, them false starts and, the pre-snap penalties or whatever, like that kills drives. You're starting 1st and 25 or 1st and 20, out the gate, which gets us away from what we do, well. So, I think we clean up the penalties. We might be closer to like that top 20 area. Just because I think we would have had more drives, without it. But I mean, the numbers make sense. Just off just my eye, I can't think of how many times we've thrown the ball downfield, right? And those big shot plays. It's every, once or twice, maybe a game. Like you kind of take that deep shot. FSU game, you obviously saw we completed damn near all of them. Well, one, Tony and Beck just missed each other, but for the most part, like we're completing in that game just due to the game plan and how FSU was playing it. To be honest, there have been a lot of like quarters looks sometimes, or if it's like one high like that strong safety who's kind of down in the box, like he's crashing in the run game, right? So I think a little bit is just the way we run the ball. Like teams are just kind of loading the box. They present it as loading the box, but they're doing a pretty good job just getting back, and they're just kind of giving us a lot of stuff like underneath a little bit. But like I said, if I want to see us just get into like a little bit more of like those like reverse plays, jet sweeps. I think stuff like that can just make a defense like play you like say honorable. Like they have to play you like when you motion a guy, the defense like you're able to move the defense and kind of get an idea what coverage they're in pre-snap. So I think we do a little bit more just like motion and jet sweeps, get outside a little bit. I think defenses will have to play you a little bit more head up and not because when you're condensed and you're in like that what do you call it? What do you call that formation? Like tight splits or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, just like all the receivers close. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, you got more guys, I guess, technically that can get better run fits, but you also have a lot more guys on the defense side of the ball. You don't know who's blitzing, who's coming. It's all crowded, right? When everyone's spread out, I think you get a better picture. And then we tag on emotion to that thing. I mean, I think it helps out the quarterback a little bit more, but we'll see. We'll see. I think there's a lot more room for improvement. One last thing I want to say when it comes to the run game is that I'm going to give Dawson credit on this part, which he's not going to say. I promise you, he's not going to say it. No one going to really say it, but I'm going to say it because whatever. I do think part of this as well, as far as just like running up the middle and, you know, the whole A gap, B gap thing, I do think, like I touched on a little bit earlier, our running backs do have to do a better job of just using the vision and just being a little bit more smarter when it comes to getting outside. Because I've seen a few times when we're watching the Stanford game, just the Stanford game alone, there's times where guys get in the hole and they could bounce it outside, but they kind of settle for just, you know, sticking into the hole and getting like, you know, 4 to 5 yards, where if you just put your foot in the ground and get outside, you're probably still running, you know. So I do think a little bit is just, you know, the vision, just running backs kind of just see it a little, they got to see it better and see it quicker, because there are some holes there if you hit it. I think back to the Louisville game where we're backed up, Jordan Lyle kind of ran into the guard and then he ended up getting through the crack and got like 8 yards. But if he just hits it when he first sees it, like it's a house call. I promise, it's a house call. So I do think some of it kind of goes hand in hand with just running backs doing a better job of just seeing the hole and trusting it and hitting it. And then sometimes like you don't have a chance when you're just running, you know, duo and, you know, the center gets his ass kicked, you know, and the linebackers, you know, they follow up through the hole. You don't have a chance, you know, sometimes. So
I know Fletcher got a lot of heat for running that dude over and then cutting it back inside to run some more guys over instead of staying outside. It's hard to keep track, right? You're running people over like that. I mean, it's easy for us in the stand to be like, hey, yeah, cut it outside. What's it like when you're in there?
Yeah, no, that guy was going to tackle him 100%. And also, it's hard to break a tackle when a guy's tackling you from behind. So what he did, he kind of just stopped on a dime because he felt like the guy was going to get him from behind. So he just stopped and, you know, try to create more yards. But yeah, he was going to get tackled. If you look at like how the guy was running, like Fletcher was not outrunning that guy.
I'll say this. So I'm a big Brashard Smith guy, but I do have to get this comment here. Matthew says Dawson didn't like the outside run comments as the same coach staff that didn't let Brashard Smith be running back. He's in the league and Martinez is not. Brashard didn't want to play running back here. Brashard wanted to play slot receiver here. He did not want to play running back. Xavier Estrepo was here. They were both playing slot receiver. I wish he could have schemed and figured out a way to get them both on the field. Brashard went to SMU with the idea he was playing wide receiver. Running back gets hurt.
Yeah.
He starts playing that role. That's not why Brashard wanted the ball as a wide receiver at Miami. It wasn't because he wanted to play running back and they brought in Damian Martinez. Brashard transferred by the time they brought in Damian Martinez in the spring, by the way, if you remember the timeline of how that went. Brashard transferred in December before the bowl game, right? Remember the whole thing? He was like on live during the bowl game against Rutgers, and then Martinez came in the spring. So there's absolutely zero correlation between the two.
Yeah. Now you're right on. Like they're definitely trying to get him to be running back, and you know, like it's one of those like, what do you do? You know, so you did. He went to SMU. Yeah, you're right. He went there to play receiver, and the starter running back got hurt, and they threw him in there, and then he said, "Fuck, oh shit, I'm actually."
Hey, hold on. By the way, EJ says Martinez hype from Pete was crazy. That was D. That was not me. And D knows that.
Wait, hold up. So didn't the guy run for 1,000 yards and 6 yards a carry?
And I'm not hating on him. I would take him on this team right now.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on him, but I never said he was a top flight running back like that, top 3-4 round. And D, you know that. So
well, I didn't say it was top 3-4 round necessarily. It was a lot of running backs last year in the draft. I didn't think he'd be cut. That's one thing I didn't think. I didn't think he'd be like not on a team right now. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of things that go on to NFL. I would say one thing with NFL and running backs is like a guy like Brashard Smith who can return kicks, who's fast. Like that skill set's, I think, even more valuable in the NFL where you can plan week to week and everybody can find a dude that's 210 pounds, 220 pounds to run you over. It's easier to find in the NFL level. But if I'm on college, you know, most of the teams that have a lot of success, you want a Brashard Smith. Look, Brashard Smith playing running back, we wanted to do it, would have helped us last year, obviously, plus kick returns. But I think, you know, a back like Martinez just because he's not having that success in the NFL doesn't mean he wasn't killing people in college. Those big backs like that are extremely difficult.
I think people remember he got off to a slower start, and I think that's kind of why, whatever reason, he Mike Ryan definitely was. Mike Ryan was the biggest. Was the one who was hating on him the most. That's for sure.
He ran for 8,000 yards, 1,000 yards, 6 yards per carry. I mean, I don't know what you want on running back there.
The start of the year, I remember people were like, "Man, we got a bust in the portal at running back." And then as the year went on, he kind of started to get that groove, and he started hitting it more. And then towards the end of the season,
long run in the ball game. Remember?
Yeah. He got through the hole. He was able to get outside. Funny enough, it was an inside run play, as Dawson would point out right now. It was an inside run play. He found his way outside, right?
There it is.
He was tweaking yesterday.
He was, man. He was fired up. They didn't even play that bad. It's funny. I mean, like, it's not like they played like they did the week before where they turned it over 4 times. He was really pissed. He's fired up.
Yeah, I think we just got a few unfortunate, like, fourth down. We didn't convert like twice, right? I think that just kind of, spun the drives a little bit and just made it a little, people just a little bit more frustrated. But overall, it was a good game. I love the way we finished. Like, honestly, I'll take the way we finished the game rather than starting that way and then letting Stanford like score a bunch of points at the end, and then we end the game and then we're all like upset. So I'm cool with, figuring out in the first half, second half, and then dominating the rest of the game and finishing on a high note. I do think that simmered a lot of people down, especially who was at the stadium. People were booing.
Yeah, it was about to get ugly. It was about to get really ugly.
It was going to get crazy. I'm not going to lie, boy.
I got to get Howard Stern saying Mark Fletcher's perfect for the run up the middle. That's why he's doing well. Outside from that, he's below average. I mean, look, if you think Mark Fletcher's below average, I would recommend watching college football more, because I think sometimes people overrate our own players, and sometimes people really underrate our own players. I think with Mark Fletcher, it's a guy that if he jumped in the portal, how many teams would be lined up, contenders with big, huge offers to get Mark Fletcher? I mean, it's like, again, if you think every team's trotting out a 6'2", 225-pounder that's running people over, like destroying people in pass protection, converting everything.
I guess it's in the eye of the beholder, right? Because like there's some people who prefer an Isaac Brown style of runner, and he's special. There's not many guys like that walking around either. I think that's where fans say, man, I just watched it and it looks a little bit different.
Well, listen, I just watched national championships for 20 years and it looked a lot more like Mark Fletcher. That's what I'm saying.
Miami fan just saw Isaac Brown run all over them.
Yeah, he had a great game. He had a great game. When I watched January college football, I see a lot of Mark Fletchers for 20 years.
You can't get to January if you ain't doing your thing in October, my brother.
Even Reggie Bush, who's the best fast running back ever in the NFL, in the college, he had a bodyguard with Lendell White, who was getting the ball in the important conversion.
So you don't want Reggie Bush?
I'll take him, but you can't just win with that alone. They had a Lendale White too, and that's the best in breed. If you go look at the last 20 years,
if this Miami team had Reggie Bush, had a Reggie Bush right now, there's no one in the country that's beating them.
Oh yeah, I'll take Reggie Bush. I would happily take Reggie Bush if that's what we're talking about. What I'm saying is, you take the best version of that speed back, and they still needed a Mark Fletcher type back, because the championship teams, if you just go back 20 years, bigger backs are the name of the game, whether it's Alabama, Georgia. Now, look, what I really would want is a Derrick Henry, right?
We need a couple Mark Henrys on the O line.
We do. Hey, P, you got the wrestling reference. Look at you, all those wrestling spots. Did you watch wrestling growing up, Aman?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. What we were flipping off the beds, and we had the little belts and stuff. We were slamming each other, pinning each other, winning the belt. Yeah, we had a full blown WWE league at the crib. Yeah.
Who are you and your brothers' guys? Like, who are your guys?
The Hardy brothers, Jeff Hardy. We used to be, all that. We're flipping on the trampoline upside down and all that. Yeah,
could have ended the football career before it began with some of those flips.
Yeah, man. Honestly, you probably, but we had a tree that was like outside, and we put the trampoline like underneath it, so we climb all the way up in the tree and then we'd jump off like flipping on each other. Like, it was really crazy when I think about it. But man, yeah, now that WWE, I'm a huge WWE guy, man. Until I found out it was fake, then it kind of broke me. But I still rock it. But
you're not allowed to say that to D, man.
No, I just had that conversation with my kids. They're asking me questions, and I'm trying to set a precedent of keeping it real with them. So I had to tell them. and it was a big moment, man. It was a loss of innocence with the lads.
Man, I was broken, man. I was like, no way. I was like, what? Like, I thought it was all real when they bleed and stuff, man. I'm like, come on. But it's still like great entertainment. That's the whole, point. I like the characters, how they act, and you get older, I realized like what it was. But man, as a kid, I thought it was real. I'm like, okay.
We were trying to get some dudes in the WB. I know Sonny Adogu tried out, Evidence Njoku tried out, but it's hard.
Did I see Charles on a commercial last night?
Yeah, bro.
And Charles Njoku. I was watching the game and he's on a commercial. I'm like, that's Charles Njoku.
Bro, yeah. So he's like doing like commercial things. I think he was on one for
Madden for the draft.
For the draft.
I Googled it and yeah.
Yeah, man. I was watching and I didn't even know. I'm watching it and I was like, is that Charles? And it was that him. Like, it was crazy. But yeah, he's been working, behind the scenes, just like doing his thing, and just to see it on TV was like pretty cool. Salute him for that.
Hey, I will say, D, you're a funny man. You tried to sneak in a Lendale White Mark Fletcher comparison. You're funny.
Oh yeah, well, that's pretty good.
Lendale White was the 45th pick of the NFL draft, my brother.
Yeah, look, first of all, running backs have been devalued a little bit since then. I mean, you saw some of the running backs that got picked day 3 this year. I mean, it's crazy. But I'm not saying he's as good as Lendale White, but they play the same style. They play the same style. They play the same style. I say Mark's keeps himself in better shape, as far as like the diet and stuff. But I'm not saying he's as good. I'm saying he's that style of back. Is that crazy? With the same size?
That's a D-money comparison I've ever seen. I'm not saying he's as good, but
I don't know. What do you think? Were you even old enough to watch Lendale White? You're a young buck.
I was young. I remember seeing Reggie Bush. I remember him cutting back across the field against Fresno State, I think it was. I hated Texas for the longest time because of Vince Young and what he did. Also, I couldn't understand why Reggie Bush tried to do a pitch mid-play, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I remember watching them. Lindo, like at the time, I just remember this big old number 21 that would just get the ball and just kind of like run over people. He was always getting like the touchdowns in the red zone. It reminds me of like the Lions, right? What's the number 5 for the Lions?
Montgomery.
Montgomery is like that type of style where it's like the short yardage, you kind of got that big guy in there, and then you got like your scat back, that's able to break it. So I think that those two are more closer to that combo. I think Fletcher is a little bit on the leaner side now. I think he did drop some pounds. Still powerful. I mean, he's 6'2", 200 plus pounds. I mean, he's still powerful. I think he has a little bit more twitch in his game than I anticipated. So I'm curious to see. I think he have a better NFL career than with college. I just think the pros, if he goes to like Jim Harbaugh, right, or a style of team like that, I think that's like his game right there. I like that, formation, stuff like that a little bit. I think that's what he's good at.
And I like him like with the Ravens, because he kind of reminds me of like, obviously he's not Derrick Henry, but let's say you have Gus Edwards and then Derrick Henry on the high end, you have Gus Edwards, like he's in that family, he's that style of back, and he could pass block. Like he just seems like that personality. It's gonna be interesting to watch him in the pros. Like I don't think he's gonna be like a first, second round pick just because running backs, unless you're super dynamic, aren't even getting picked in those first 2 days, really. Yeah. But I could see him being a guy that the pros like him just because of the way he operates, how smart he is. Like, I mean, he's basically like an extra offensive lineman with the way he pass blocks. So if you have a good quarterback, you want to protect him too. You can convert short yardage. So I could see him being a pro. Gus Edwards versus Mark. I'm taking Mark all day at the same age, and they're not that much different physically.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I can't. Gus Edwards
doesn't sound like Gus. Doesn't sound like Aman agrees with you there. I think
you play with Gus, right? Break it down.
Gus is like that was my freshman year. They didn't really play him a lot, so it was kind of like harder to get a real idea of like what he could do. Obviously, he went to Rutgers, and I was played in the NFL since pretty much still to this day. So
he's way more accomplished to this point than Gus was at the same point of his career. It's hard because we're looking at the NFL stuff with Gus, and he's turned out to have such a great career.
I think Gus had really good vision, man. Like when I just think back to just a few of his plays, even at Miami or just when he was at Rutgers, like he has really good vision for like a bigger, heavier running back. right? He moves a lot more fluid than you would think at that size. If you really seen him in person, like he's a big dude, you know. I think he has more muscle mass as well, but I mean, they're in the same style of play. I'll say, yeah, they're in the same style of play.
So, Aman, I gotta ask you. Pete's been saying on the show, we you know how much stuff we do about Josh Moore, Jojo Trader. I mean, all the other guys. We do it every time. And Pete's been saying, both on the shows we do with you and off those shows, he says, Tony Johnson, don't sleep on Tony Johnson. Fine wine, Tony Johnson, the old man in the room. And then he shows up and has a big game, not just catching the ball, but running after the catch, doing his thing. So after all that talk about all these highly touted young guys, what do you see from Tony Johnson in this game against?
Oh man, he's one of my best evals, man. One of my best. Hold on, I'm trying to find the tweet. Hold on. When I find it, I'm gonna put it under one of you guys' posts, the CanesInSight, because only thing I know is that watching film, I was big on Tony Johnson. I said he's an older player, played a lot of ball, a lot of different conferences or whatever the case may be, different teams, different systems. But every time you look, like he's a really good route runner, really good hands. He's not the fastest guy, but he just knows how to play the position very well. Now we're seeing, at least last game, like you have a guy who can actually play on this level. Like he can play ball for Miami. He can be a guy that can give you that 300-400 yards as like a third receiver or fourth receiver, whatever the case may be. Because I'm the type of, like, how I see it is like, look, Malachi Tony is Malachi Tony, right? I think we all know that. But you still can help Malachi Tony out by having another guy, at least in the slot, that can come in and at least give him, I don't want to say a break, but can come in and there's no real like significant drop off at that position. That makes sense. I think we saw last game, they're both playing slot. We went spread, both those at slot. I think you get a little bit more creative and you can really open up the offense by having another receiver become a little bit more productive, be reliable for Carson Beck. Because you can't just key in on Malachi Tony every single play as a quarterback. Like it's just not realistic, right? And you got to help the quarterback in this situation. So I love what I saw from Malachi. He led the team in receiving yards, so I can brag in the group chat about that because I told him he's a good player. So I like his game, man. He's not like your small like slot receiver. He has pretty good size. I think he's like 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot. He got some mass to him. Good route runner. I mean, I like what I saw. And I do think that gave the staff confidence to kind of keep him in that rotation going forward. Because that's kind of what this becomes, right? When you go out there, you make a few plays, they're like, okay, we can lean on you. Like, you know what you're doing, where you're supposed to be, you're making those plays. But so I think we'll see a lot more of them going forward. I think that was kind of like, I wouldn't say coming out party. I'm not going to, go full on jump the gun, but I think you're going to see him in a rotation pretty heavily going forward for sure.
Joel saying Tony Johnson on Storm Sessions was great. Young man's locked in on life. Yeah, I interviewed him for University of Miami Storm Sessions on the official YouTube channel, and he was awesome, man. Just like they said, he was a walk-on. He was an academic walk-on, academic scholarship, football walk-on at FAU, and then going from there. So mentality-wise, and how much of a difference does it make? Because he really waited his turn. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes after this, but I agree. I think he's going to get some more carries now, or more targets. Sorry, now that he's shown it. But to wait his turn as a veteran who transferred in from Cincinnati's in the top 25, and he was a pretty key guy there. Like, what does it say about his maturity level to kind of stay locked in and wait for his opportunity?
That's why it's important to have those vet guys in the room, because someone like Tony Johnson understands that college football, at the end of the day, the best player is going to play. And unfortunately, he transferred in and he's had to be behind the best slot receiver in college football. Or you can argue with freshman and senior, whoever, it ain't too many people better than Malachi in that slot, if not any, right? So it's just unfortunate the way the dominoes fell, just transferring in as a senior guy, right? But that experience has allowed him to like have the respect and tip his hat and understand that it's about the team. What gives us the best chance to win? And Malachi Tony starting and doing what he's doing is that. And if he has to play a lesser role, like, that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, man. It's a lot of football, and the goal at the end of the day is to win. I know all the guys trying to go to the NFL, right? And everyone gonna get their opportunity, So I think he's the type of guy who's just gonna make the most of the opportunities he do get, And we saw last game, he got in, I think Louisville game. It wasn't even no pass plays, but he got in a few snaps, I believe, and just trying to maximize those little opportunities you do get. I think that's what we're seeing, and in return, you get rewarded by more playing time, more life in the offense. From like a Tony Johnson in particular aspect of things. So
I got a number for you, Aman.
Talk to me.
22. You know what that is?
Let me guess. Is that the number of yards Malachi needs?
No. I'm not. No. I'm not. I was gonna say it's becoming easy for him now. If it's only 20 a game, then he doesn't need that many more. He still needs to keep up a good pace here. I don't know the exact number, but he can't just sleepwalk in, man. He can't just sleepwalk in. 22.
Yeah.
The number of snaps that Jojo Trader played on Saturday evening.
Hey, you know what? I thought about that at first, but I didn't want to take the conversation there because I know how
I'll take it there.
Hey, I know how it gets in here.
It's been going on, man. So
man. I do think you're starting to see like the slow progression of him being inserted back into like this like team in a way. 22 snaps, that's pretty solid. Obviously, no targets or anything, but if you really watch him out there, he was getting pretty active in the run game. He was trying to put guys on their back. So like you can tell like there's a little bit more of like a synergy going on both sides of things where he's kind of, he's I wouldn't say buying in because I'm not saying he was ever bought out, but you can just see like that effort is there, so I think you'll kind of continue to see him getting that rotation. Of things, but 22. So I'm gonna watch out next game. I'm gonna see if it gets up to like 25, 30. See if that
I'm already seeing it in the comments though. Now people aren't just happy. People are still, it's good he played, but now it's they ran too much when he was in, or they didn't target him. So like, I don't know that this discussion's ever gonna stop until he actually has a great game or until he transfers. It's gonna be like that.
It's one or the other, huh?
It was double secret probation that he was allowed to play, but they weren't allowed to throw to him. That was that's what I heard it was.
Just like he was suspended earlier in the season, but was playing snaps in games.
I think this is like one of the biggest like open cases that I've ever seen. Like, this is by far worse than the Ray debacle thing, man. Like, this is like, like I've never seen it before. But hey, I again, like I said earlier, I think early in the year I said it's a long season, man. Like, if we're a team trying to go to the ACC championship game and you're trying to make that run to the playoffs, like he may not be active right now, but it may be week 12 or it might be the ACC championship game. A guy gets nicked up, knock on wood, something happens, right? You're gonna need a guy like that, right? So I think it's pretty good to see him kind of getting up rhythm still. He's out there feeling like a part of the wins, right? And just continue it, man. I think he has that first big catch. I think that's where that confidence and just like that momentum kind of skyrockets, but we'll see. I promise you, I think things are different if he catches one of those passes against Notre Dame. I swear. I think we having a whole nother conversation if he catch that first post route and cribs it. I think that I think we might not even be talking about if he playing. He might be starting. He catch that pass because football, honestly, it's a momentum thing. Like, it's a confidence thing. Like, you catch that pass, like it just does something to you. I'm telling you, it just unlocks a whole nother like focus. But it didn't happen. So here we are. Here we are talking about 22 snaps.
Would you get him going with like screens, like just automatic, like get the ball in his hands and you don't have to worry about it finding him?
I mean, you can. I mean, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think someone like him, you give him like a reverse, even, something like that. Just get the ball in his hands, man, and just see what he does and just see how he builds that confidence after it. See how focused he becomes after that. Like, me personally, like that's how I play the game. Like, early in the game, like I want the ball, I want to get that first catch, like I want to get my mind like extremely focused. You know, I just want to feel the ball. Pause. You know, I just want to, you know, get in the game. So I do think some receivers are like that, where they got to get the ball in order to kind of feel, you know, like they're a part of the game plan. They're a part of, you know, they're impacting the game. Look at AJ Brown. You know, I mean, he signed $100+ million contract, and they're still kind of, you know, unhappy in ways about just like the production. Even though they're winning games, it's still like that factor of like, I feel like I'm the reason that we're gonna win the game. Like I want it on my shoulders. And that's kind of how a lot of receivers play it, you know. So I think maybe that's the type of personality he has, where if you don't get the ball, he just feels like he's just out there doing nothing. But as like I said, I think he's incorporating himself more into the offense now. He's doing his thing in a run game, and you know, you get rewarded for that thing. You know, you do get rewarded for that. So I'm curious to see this SMU game, and if he again gets another 22, 25 snaps, and you know, maybe
because you know what'll happen if he gets any less than that. Oh, he's back in the doghouse, huh?
Back in the doghouse. Check
must have been suspended again.
What they gonna say? They gonna say that, you know what? They also say he swung on Mario, or they gonna, it's gonna be something else.
You know what? A couple people actually DM me saying they heard that he swung on an assistant coach, like, which was obviously completely false. But it just goes to show you what these conspiracies are crazy with him, man.
Yeah, man.
And look, we talk about it a lot, obviously, on the show, but we also reflect what's going on in the comments. Like, you guys understand that we get to, on this show, topic-wise, what you guys are talking about passionately.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one thing, Pete, real quick, and I'm gonna piggyback off after you just said. And this is so funny because what you just said is like crazy. If you remember when I went down LSU game and I didn't get back in the game, I remember looking at Twitter like after the game, going back, and people were like, "Oh, Aman cursed out Coach Rick at halftime, and he got suspended." And I remember me and Coach Rick was just like, "What the fuck?" We're just like, "Bro, what the hell?" Like,
man, it would take a lot to curse out Coach Rick, man.
I was like, damn, like me and Rick was like, kind of like, just like, people don't know what they're talking about sometimes. So it's some things I think people start to guess and assume, based off just like way the game went or whatever, and they kind of try to put together a puzzle and they kind of run with it. But yeah, man, I was dying. I was like, that's far from what happened. As a matter of fact, they don't even know I'm never playing again. So I'm like, they don't even know, like, this is over with. But they're like, oh, he's suspended. You know, the offense was terrible, and Aman has something to say about it in the locker room, I heard. And I'm like, there was no talking in the locker room. We got whooped. Like, everyone was mad, and like that was it. But yeah, you're right. People do guess, man. You get some crazy takes, I should say, these days.
What's the craziest thing that you mentioned, that one that involved you? What's the craziest thing you heard from anywhere that you were like, man, that is so not true. That's crazy.
Off top of my head, I'm not sure. I do know, like, there's obviously talks of like, you know, you got the thing where, you know, the reason why Brad Kaya, like, you know, went to the pros. What else? You got, you know, obviously the whole, you know, Sam Bruce situation. You know, like it's not as like cut and dry like people may think, type of thing. Craziest thing, man.
That Rick one was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember reading that too.
Yeah, I remember just people going crazy saying that I like went off on Coach Rick. Like me
now, George says you swung on him.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, bro. First off, you know, I'm the type of person like this. Like this, how I operate, right? Yeah, that's what it was. They said I beat up Malik. They're tweaking. I'm like, I'm the type of person like you can be like older, right? Man, I'm never swinging on an old person, bro. Like, that's just like, you feel me? If Coach Rick swung on me right now, like, I'm gonna just get hit and just be like, chill out, coach, you tripping. I'm not gonna get in a full-on brawling match with, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's just, some people will though, but that's not me. Like, if anyone know me, like I just be chilling, bro. I would never swing on an old person, bro.
Like, have you been suspended this whole time? I thought it was a medical deal. Maybe you just got suspended for swinging on all these guys, and they did it like Jordan, where they don't say what the real reason is. You're gone.
Yeah, man. They said I was like, because I missed like obviously the rest of the season essentially until like it got announced Florida State game. But yeah, they were like essentially, like, yeah, he's pretty much a piece of yes. Essentially, like I'm like, bro, like they're tweaking. But yeah, no, me and Malik were cool. Like we lived together. That's the funny part. Me and Malik were literally roommates. So it was just like, come on, bro. Like
the funny thing is in today's era, I mean, after loss, you can't do it, but like, that's one of those things today guys are just like, should just like post a selfie of themselves, like smiling when these rumors come out, man.
Right.
That's not going to happen in Miami, the social media stuff.
Yeah, man. We be laughing, reading a lot of tweets. Like people, we just be laughing.
All right. Well, listen, Aman, you're the man. Always appreciate you joining us here on the CanesInSight Daily podcast. Hopefully get another victory show next week. Yep. Talk about some receivers stepping up. And as always, man, appreciate you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. I look forward to this week. SMU on the road. I want to see how we come out, 12 o'clock game, right? Guys, it's going to be early. We can get the game out the way, get back home. So I do think, we're going to continue what we saw in the last 2 quarters of last game into this game. And, we'll hit the ground running. I think we'll be happy with the results. We just keep 1-0 every week and just, get to that ACC championship game. And then from there, it's another season at that point. So
can we go 1-0 in the first half, plees?
Yeah, I would love it.
On the game,
I would love it, man. I want to see us start fast, finish strong, and get out of there with a dub, and look forward to Syracuse, I think, even after that, or whatever it is at home. But so it's gonna be exciting. I'm ready to see what we do.
You cleared the air about this fight, Pete. That's we gotta name that short. We gotta do a reel, just like Aman cleared the air of old rumor.
I'm gonna put Mark Richten him like in the boxing ring.
That's it right there. That's 1 million views right there, man. You gotta make that one happen. Of course, we're thinking about. I know you got Jamaican roots. Thinking about Jamaica dealing with this hurricane over here.
I got some family out there too, man. Shout out to all my aunts and uncles out there, man. Hopefully they be safe. But I think everyone will be all right, man. Anything about a Jamaican, they're strong people, so we'll be all right. We'll bounce back.
That's it, man. Man, always appreciate you. The most requested.
I appreciate it, man.
See you next week,
guys. All right, guys.
Go Canes.
Oh, that was good stuff, man.
Yeah, that's hilarious, man. You get the boxing ring. I mean, I hope you do that, actually. That'd be amazing.
What we need to start a series because we know enough former players. Like I know enough guys from my era of like remembering crazy rumors from the
yeah, just like you can search them on CanesInSight.
Off season. That's going to be our off season when we have nothing because we only have one portal.
Yeah,
that's what we're gonna do, man. I gotta go with my guy Stan Dobard, and we're gonna work on some of these stories for you guys, man.
I love the concept. Yeah, the second portal, man, was so clutch for us. That was like half our team was the second portal. I remember being like on Mount Fuji checking for updates on Marty Brown. That was like the best time. It's unfortunate that we got to actually figure out how to do a show during that time. But I love the idea. What I'm thinking, Pete, is, CanesInSight, like it's an archive. Like we can go back to all these times. It started in 2011. It's all searchable. Twitter is searchable too. We find these old rumors, just like time-stamped and just like show it to these guys. Like, hey, did this happen? What happened here? The boxing ring is amazing, though.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. It could be a good one there.
I'll tell you what I'm dreading, Pete. I'm dreading getting a text from Duaso about Romello if he balls against him.
That's happening. That's happening.
So Duaso,
listen, I would take him on this team this year.
He's playing well. Good for him. I mean, some guys they need to leave, right? And he's one that left and had success. SMU's really been the spot for that. But man, Duaso, with KJ Duff playing the way he is, wide receiver for Rutgers, looks like he's going to be one of the stars of college football. I think he had like 200-something yards last week in conference. Romello's the one that kind of didn't work out of his crew. So now if Romello gets like a 100-yard game against us, it'll never end. It will never end. But we have to watch out for him. Yeah,
I look. No pain, no gain says Jojo is better than Romello. Look, I I don't think that's true right now. I think that if you look at a guy's career though and see how it's turning out for Romelo, with the season that he's having, there's hope. There's hope for Jojo. So
yeah, listen, Romelo, yeah, he's playing well. He's done what he needs to do. Just like Brashard Smith did what he needed to do. Just like those defensive linemen did what they needed to do. Elijah Roberts is one that I don't think he ever needed to leave. I don't know why we didn't hold on to him. I don't know the exact story, but he's one that so these other guys, I think they needed a fresh start. But Elijah Roberts, he should have never not been a Cane. That guy's a great player, a great defensive lineman from Columbus. Like, why did he walk out the door? That one I never will understand. But, I mean, it worked out for him, right? The guy ended up being a great player. And, if he went to Columbus, he was very, very familiar with East Las Canarias, Cuban Express. My guy Ben came from Virginia, and he was shouting out the OG ham croquetas, 7 different types of croquetas. If you're coming from out of town or you're in town, Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion right there in the center of it all. Sandwiches, pan con lechon, you got the steak sandwich, you got the cubaritos, whole bakery. So any kind of classic, guava pastry that you want to get, or if you want to just grab an empanada to go, tequeños, which is Venezuelan, but you still get that here at East Las Canarias Cuban Express. The shakes, I know Pete's all over that it used to be. I don't know anymore with the way you're wearing that weight vest and busting out those shirts. I think you maybe cut out the shakes, but these are still high quality. You got the Cuban coffee, the desserts, natilla, you name it, they got it. East Las Canarias Cuban Express.
I don't know how long you can be on. I have to kind of get off soon because I got to be over at campus we got Dan Radakovich, and I got to do the clips and stuff before I leave. But the question that we've been getting here, Milan Paris announcing tonight. He's announcing at 7. Feel very good about this one.
Feel great. Feel excellent about it. I think it's going to be a good day for the Canes. Maybe we'll do a reaction show if that goes Miami's way. But incredible player, talented, 6'5", 4'5", verified, 200 pounds verified, and then his senior film is as good as anybody. Blocks, I mean, check, right? You saw him in person, P, on his visit. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought he looks like a basketball player in a good way, just like wiry, strong, legit. I mean, what's he listed at 6'5"? I would say 6'4.5", 6'5". Like that's not an inflated number there. And he looks, again, when I say he looks like a basketball player, he does not look like a skinny basketball player. I mean, he looks like he's got good core strength for his size, just seeing how he's built. We've seen his tape. We've seen him jumping all over the place. And how he moves, right? Like he doesn't move like a tall guy. So
no, excited to see him. We'll do an instant react pod if that one goes our way. As we shift to your group chat sports, Pete, get us flipped here. I'll bring in Clay while you get out of here and get your Canes basketball on as we get to talk a little bit of national college football with the legendary Fink. But yeah, man, Milan Paris. I think if you add Milan Paris and you got Samorian Wingo continues to produce at a high level, Tyron Evans banged up, but you see the frame, and then Van Spafford, speedster out of California. That's a nice little mix of players, I think, for Miami's receiving core.
Yeah, I think those guys, and you land Paris. I don't think they're going to be giving up on Calvin Russell either. I know that question is going to be coming a lot. We'll see if they end up landing him, but I don't think that one would be out of the equation. So yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and listen, before we bring on the Think and switch to the national perspective, let's keep it local with the Miami Hurricane Team Store. Get your mugs. 50% off your first order by signing up for the mailing list and get eligible for a Malachi Tony and CJ Daniels football. Also use promo code INSIGHT20 for a 20% discount. Just write that into MiamiHTS.com or use it in person. Miami Hurricane Team Store right across the street from the University of Miami. But yeah, these mugs, this is what you need right here. Look at the selection. Whether you're drinking liquor, you're drinking coffee, drink water on the go, whatever it is, they got it at MiamiHTS.com, the Miami Hurricane Team Store. Use promo code INSIGHT20. Get 20% off your first item at the Miami Hurricane Team Store. As we shift into national mode, Pete, get out there. Let's cover these canes. Let's do our thing. And I will bring in the one, the only, the Think. How we doing? Hey, get your there we go. Try now. We got the Think on mute right now, man. Tallahassee, what's going on out there? There's Figur's face.
I'm that's a rough start.
It's like didn't Norvell have or maybe it was Napier? Didn't he have like a delay of game coming out the half or something like that?
Yep.
That was that right there.
Napier. Yeah. I'm doing well. I'm doing well any day. We're talking some Kentucky guys later today, so that's always fun.
Yeah, exciting, dude. Honestly, I had not paid a lot of attention to Kentucky just because they had
not much reason to.
Let's start there. Let's just jump right to it. Let's start there with Kentucky because you're originally from Kentucky, a Kentucky fan growing up. Now you're in Tallahassee, but you keep a very close eye on that program. Cutter Boley, 6'5", 220 from Lexington. I see 247 was a little lower on him than the industry. He was a composite 4-star, 247 3-star. Interesting background, basketball player. You've seen that before, especially with these bigger quarterbacks, but also some jumps in track, which I thought was pretty interesting, just showing his athleticism. And then seeing him on the field, again, you have more of a background with him than me, but first thing that jumps out is big and athletic.
Yeah, this is a guy that I've really followed since he was maybe in 8th grade. He's one of the more talented quarterbacks to ever come out of my home state. He's originally from Kentucky. It says Lexington on his profile. He is from somewhere in Eastern Kentucky. I forget the actual name of the school, but he started his high school career out there, moved to Lexington Christian Academy for his junior and senior year. He was in the 25 class and he reclassed up to the 2024 class, but he had actually originally reclassed backwards. So he's supposed to be in the 24 class. And I think once he realized that he was good enough to not have to be old for his grade, he decided I'm gonna skip that 5th year of high school and go back to my original class. So it was a big time recruitment. There were a lot of schools after him: Tennessee, Florida State. I think Alabama was in the mix. He took a lot of visits very early in his career, and there was a point. I mean, he was a 5-star on some of these sites earlier in his career in high school. And yeah, some of the basketball stuff. He's a pretty gifted basketball player as well. He's just athletic, tall. It's just a very, I mean, he's pretty technical too.
Yeah,
this is a very talented player. Very talented.
You hit him with a Dirk fadeaway. Why do you think his stock dropped to where he's a 3-star on the composite? You didn't get smaller, obviously.
Yeah, he didn't get smaller. I think probably part of it was as he reclassified back up, you lose some of the luster of like, oh, he's doing this as a sophomore or junior or whatever it might have been, but he moves up a grade. And I played him all 2 years that he was in high school, and I did not get a sack on him personally, but we did get some sacks on him, and I think he had a worse year as a senior than he did as a junior. Not quite as gifted of a receiving core. They had a running back who plays for Virginia now who left for his senior year. So I think it was just a little bit worse with supporting class. I think he played through an injury maybe. But he did definitely drop about 200 spots in the rankings. He was top 150 at one point, ended up in the 300s. But he still put up solid numbers: 64% completion, 2,100 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions as a senior. And it was just a little bit up and down, if I remember correctly, his senior year. They lost a few games they probably shouldn't have lost, in which he didn't really play as well as he should have. I think this game at Western, he might have had like 7 touchdowns on Western Kentucky's campus. But this is a guy who obviously was not the starter coming into the year. UK brings in Zach Calzada, who very clearly things went south very quickly. He comes in, he gets hurt. Boley takes over as the starter, has a few up and down. It's really just been up and down basically his entire career, to be honest. He starts his career, I guess, rewind last year as a true freshman, starts his career, comes in at the end of a blowout loss at Florida for Brock Vandegrift. First pass of his career is a pick 6 to Cormani McLean in the 4th quarter. I think he went 1 for 6 in that game, had like a 25 PFF grade. It was really ugly. Next week, they play FCS team. He puts up like a 90 PFF grade. Then they go on the road to Texas, and he comes in the second half, and I think it was the best quarterback performance I've seen in a Kentucky uniform since Will Levis. Oof. Then he comes back to Lexington, plays Louisville, throws like 3 picks, 2 pick sixes, gets benched again for Brock Vandegrift. It was just it's a roller coaster with Cutter Boley. He comes in this year. He has some good games. He has some terrible games. I really never know what we're going to get, but this weekend was a good one.
Yeah, Calzada, we always were, as Cubans, were waiting for the Cuban quarterback to emerge. Everybody thought it'd be Calzada, ended up being Fernando Mendoza. But yeah, so just this past week, 5 touchdowns?
Yeah, freshman record at UK.
So what do you see this week against one of the best fronts you're going to face, period, that impressed you as far as his development?
Yeah, so it wasn't really the high-end passes that you're used to seeing that excite you with Boley. It was more of just UK's O-line stinks again, and he struggled to navigate the pocket up to this point. I think he's had a few flashes of really impressive play under pressure, but in this game, he did a really impressive job, I think, of just finding his running backs, finding his tight ends, finding these check downs. And you have it listed here, hit 12 different receivers in that Tennessee game. And I think that was really, he was just doing a really good job of sensing the pressure that Tennessee was sending and getting the ball out quickly. And that's not really something we've seen a lot from him up to this point. So this is clearly a guy who's still maturing. He's only 20 years old, getting reps under his belt, but you see the growth. I think he's finally stacked 2 solid games in a row here these last 2 games for UK. So they have something in Cutter Boley if they can keep him around. I know for a fact that he strongly considered leaving in the portal in the spring after they brought in Calzada. I think there was word that he might have actually been outperforming Calzada, and they really had no urgency to shake things up as far as who was going to start to open the year. So that was probably a little frustrating. He'll be one to monitor this offseason, unfortunately. Obviously, I think he'll give UK the first chance, and if they bring in a guy like Stein from Oregon, who's a QB specialist, former quarterback, and maybe even if they do keep Stoops and just shake things up on the offense because the OC is really rough right now. I don't think it's a lock that he leaves, but man, I don't know why I'd come back if I were him,
He's impressive. You see the development needed. I'm not sure his arm. You tell me. I remember Burrow was a guy who every year you see him get better at throwing. I mean, just his throwing improved tremendously since he was a high school player. I don't know if was Boley a really serious basketball player where he was playing half the year, or was it more just kind of like he did a little bit?
Yeah, just for his school, I think. Yeah,
because I know with someone like a Burrow, that came later. And this is the guy who reclassed. So there's a lot of reasons why maybe he's earlier in his development. But yeah, it seems like he has more arm than you see on some of his throws. I don't know what you think about that. Just body-wise, athletically, he has arm, but there's still some polishing up to do in that part of his game.
Yeah, his mechanics stunk in high school. They were really bad. They've improved a lot, and I think you've always been able to tell that he had more arm strength in him, and it just hadn't really been unlocked. And he's definitely shown it off a few times throughout this season. I would say it seems to be improving with his feel for the game.
No, he's starting to get now attention from other quarterbacks. Just talked about Andre Woodson, another big athletic quarterback, kind of helping him with the process. I remember at one point I thought Andre Woodson was going to be a high NFL pick, just because he was so big and productive for that spurt where he was really rolling. Ended up being a good player just over the course of his career. But he has some help. The Boley does from a receiver another young guy, another big guy, DJ Miller.
Yeah, this is a guy who honestly I'd kind of forgotten about. He kind of got lost in the fold. He was a top 500 high 3-star recruit in last year's class. 6'3", 204-pound true X wide receiver, true freshman this year. He'd been recovering from a quad injury and made his season debut in last week's game. But this is a guy who was extremely productive in high school coming out of St. Louis. 137 catches, 2,400 yards, 33 touchdowns in his last 2 years of high school. And he showed out against Tennessee. 5 catches on 5 targets, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, one of which he was able to run past the entire defense. And another Boley kind of rolls out of the pocket, hits him right in the corner of the end zone. He gets a little toe tap action. It was a really encouraging performance from DJ Miller. And that's another guy in this young receiving room. We've talked about Hardly Gilmore in the past, but it's something you can build off of if you can maintain or if you can keep all these guys around.
And look, you're tight to the program here as we watch DJ Miller and some of the stuff he can do. St. Louis has been a very good area for wide receivers, by the way, lately. Some really, really explosive players coming out of that region into college football. But in terms of Stoops, I mean, you're a Kentucky fan. How do you see this playing out? Because clearly these are guys, especially you could take the whole passing game, right? You take a Gilmore, you take Cutter, you take Miller. I mean, that'd be nice to just take everybody together. But like, what is the expectation in Kentucky right now with where this program goes?
So I think it's actually kind of shifted within the last 2 weeks. It's sort of shifted from, for those who are unfamiliar, UK is in the worst buyout situation, in my opinion, in the country. Stoops is the 12th largest buyout, obviously not the 12th best coach in the country, and he's the only coach in the SEC that has his entire buyout due within 30 days of being fired. You can't spread it out like most of these other schools can. It's $38 million. UK is obviously not well known for allocating a lot of funds towards their football program. So if they spend $38 million on firing him, you're going to have to go cheap on your next coach. You're going to have to go cheap on your NIL in the future. But after these past 2 weeks, after you blow a game to Texas that you probably should have won, you definitely should have won. They set records in finding new ways to lose that game. They outgained them in every stat and still lost. And then after you get completely embarrassed in your own stadium by rival Tennessee, I think there's kind of some things shifting within the boosters and the donors, and I think we might see change sooner than originally expected, for sure.
So you think potentially this year?
Like I think it'll probably be after the season if it happens. But yeah,
last season.
Yeah, the time has come. I'm just ready to rip the Band-Aid off because it's sort of similar to the Calipari end of his tenure. It's a guy who's done so much for the program, truly a legend, but things got sour towards the end. And every year that he sticks around, his legacy just gets a little bit more tarnished. And I hate that that's how he's being remembered. And in my mind as well, that guy gave me amazing memories growing up, but it happens with every coach. They get to a point in their tenure. Coach O, Jimbo, these guys who have massive success at their program, it doesn't last forever. And I think we've probably reached that time. I think we've reached that time a few years ago, honestly.
And Miller is impressive. Just watching him, his high school highlights, knowing how he produced. This is a talented young passing game. We talked about Gilmore in the past on this show a few times and what he can do. Obviously, with Cutter, he's starting to emerge. And you add this guy in the mix when you look at the production that he had last week. You mentioned 5 catches, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, third most by UK freshman ever. And then the high school production. We always talk about on this show, high school production with wide receivers is so key to me. I mean, when you look at these guys, the guys that get open and are quarterback friendly, they tend to find the football. It's hard to find too many of these size speed freaks that just, for whatever reason, their team couldn't get in the ball and they don't produce and they blow up at the next level. It happens, but man, it's just much more common to see guys like this that have ability, but then also have the production to match.
Yeah, I mean, you don't accidentally get 137 yards catches over 2 seasons at this size. This isn't just your slot possession guy underneath. This is a big body true X, and he's racking up catches in his high school career. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of intriguing pieces in the passing game for Kentucky. Redshirt freshman tight end Willie Rodriguez is also from the state. He was a 3-star, but he's really, really athletic, has some really impressive catches from Cutter. They're roommates, if I remember correctly. And one other thing about Cutter that I know a lot of UK fans appreciate. UK fans. All right, man. All right. Watch it. UK fans have been begging, and I think most programs have, for them to throw the ball to the tight ends basically since I was born. And Cutter, growing up a UK fan, I think he's thrown the ball to the tight ends more already this year than they had in the entire Stoops tenure in the season. So that's been fun to watch. Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think ultimately the grass might not be greener if you move on from Stoops. Kentucky's got a pretty low floor as a program, but he showed that you can raise the ceiling. I don't know if that's going to be the case in the NIL era now because they just don't have they aren't allocating the resources that the other schools in the conference are. But you just got to switch something up at this point.
Yeah, got 1,200 on. By the way, remember to like and subscribe to Group Chat Sports. That's our national show that we do. We record a few times a week right after Canes Insight, talking national and really the stuff that you're not seeing on ESPN, trying to get you the emerging guys, the breakout players, the stars of the week that you may not be hearing about, but that you're going to be hearing about in the future, like some of the guys in the Kentucky passing game who maybe end up in the portal, maybe whoever the next Kentucky coach or next Kentucky coordinator or just this staff right here hone into being stars of college football. And that's what we're trying to do, just give you the next one every single time. But let's shift to a Cane, right? Because we do have a lot of Canes fans on right now as we record. And one of the stars I thought of the blowout win against Stanford, which again, overmatched opponent, but it's hard to miss Markel Bell, highest grade offensive tackle this week, Pro Football Focus. You see the size, a couple highlights where he was just straight tossing guys, kind of ragdolling people in the running game. Fink, you're not a Miami fan, so you're watching this just from an offensive line perspective here. What do you see when you see Markel Bell at this stage of his development, second year out of JUCO?
I think you see a guy that you really, really, really want to make it work, because if he makes it work, he's about as big of a human being as you ever see. He reminds me a lot of DeJuan Jones at Ohio State. I remember he was the right tackle across from Paris Johnson. You have Francis on the other side here. And I remember at the time, Francis is almost certainly going to be drafted ahead of Markel Bell. But Paris Johnson, who was also drafted ahead of DeJuan, he did not have the cleanest pressure like pass pro numbers. And that's sort of the case with Francis. Obviously, he has more than adequate pass pro numbers. But DeJuan Jones, much like Markel Bell, they just don't allow pressure at the college level, because it's just impossible to get through these guys or really around these guys unless you're like David Bailey or maybe Ruben Bain in practice.
Right.
This 6'8", 348-pounder, 98th percentile arm length, 7'2" wingspan, 95th percentile. That's for the NFL standards. He's just a ginormous human being, and he's allowed 6 pressures in 7 starts this year with 0 sacks. He's adding stuff in the run game. I feel like he gets more confident in the run game every time I watch him. Last year, he looked a little uncomfortable, just throwing his weight around in the run game, and I don't think that's the case whatsoever this year. You said it. He had a few big time blocks in that Stanford game. Put up the highest grade of any offensive tackle in the country this week, career high grade. Do you know what his eligibility situation is?
I think you'd have to sue.
Okay.
Play, but theoretically, if you follow the Pavia deal, you're talking about he'd be eligible, but he'd have to sue.
Yeah, so if he could get another year, we might see a first rounder, at least top 50 guy. But right now, I think I'd probably have an early day 3 grade on him. I think he's more of a athlete than a guy like DeJuan Jones. I keep calling back to that, but there's not too many guys built like that.
Oh, it's a great comp.
Yeah, but I think he's a better athlete. DeJuan kind of gets his feet stuck in the sand sometimes. I don't see that quite as often with Bell. Yeah,
and so I love the DeJuan Jones comp. Yeah, 4th round pick. I could see that. I've talked to people and they're saying late day 3 right now, and I think he will go up to that early day 3 because truth is, number one, he's been very productive. Just from a Canes fan perspective, there's not been much pressure coming from the left side. He's been effective in the running game. Not a lot of penalties. He's been pretty solid just from a college productivity standpoint. You look at a game against Florida where Tyreek Sapp really was invisible in that game, and then the next week he's playing Texas and dominating, right? Markel Bell really took him out of the game, which is, on the higher end of competition, right? You're going to face. We'll see if Miami makes the playoffs. You'll see better pass rushers battling. But he's a high character guy, which I think is something that, when scouts know him, but I just think you've seen this enough to know that as more people get to know one of these high character guys that presents well and does the right things and has good reputation in the building, that tends to move them up through the process. Also, I think the guy just keeps getting better and better. So we'll see how the film looks by the end of the year. But the weaknesses with him are going to be just related to his frame. He's not going to be the most laterally quick. He makes up for some of that with his length. Obviously, the pass rushers he's going against are going to get better. I think the anchor stuff, especially last year, it's gotten better, but he's not the most bottom heavy guy. He's tall to begin with. You can get under him a little bit. And then the bending, you know, he does have some waist bend to him, 6'9". So I think the DeJuan Jones comparison is a really, really good one, just in terms of there's not that many guys with that size. There's going to be some clear negatives, but someone's going to take him with the way tackles are valued here.
Yeah, I think he's been extremely. You could probably make the argument he's been. I don't know if I would make the argument he's been the best O lineman for the Canes, but I think he certainly could make that argument, especially with these pass protection numbers this year. And we talked about it on another show. We don't 100% agree with the pressure charting and stuff for PFF, but you know, it's probably pretty accurate. And I think with the character stuff, we're talking about DeJuan Jones. You know, one of the big knocks on DeJuan Jones was, does this guy want to be an NBA player? Like, does he?
Right.
I think does he love football? Is what they used to say. So that won't be the case with Markel Bell. I don't think you improve like this if you don't care about football. And obviously, you say there's great stuff being said about him around the building.
No, and I interviewed him personally. Like I can vouch. I mean, this guy is just not. I can vouch for what people say about him and for just my impressions of him. This guy is going to be on the high end of not. He's not just going to be like check. It's going to be. We believe in this guy, but from the way he works. So
does he have his own burger? Did I see that?
He does. And he actually did an interview with Peter Reeves, who's usually with us on Group Chat Sports, but is at some Canes basketball stuff. But yeah, his own burger. Shout out to our guy, Patrick at Pop Subs, who made the burger for Markel. So he's got his own burger for charity, which, you know, he really kind of took charge on. The guy's clean. He's not just clean as a whistle, which he is clean as a whistle, but on top of that, it really is a care factor. And you hear coaches say that this guy cares about doing the right things from a detail standpoint, from a body standpoint. So like anything that's going to make him better, he is for, which is why I definitely try to just push him further. I think it's like with Jalen Rivers, right? Jalen Rivers was somebody who ended up going 5th round, but I was always telling buddies of mine in the league, like, hey, this guy's a really, really safe bet personality wise. Whatever you have him as, you can kind of add 10% to it because of the reliability. And he's already starting in the NFL. I think Markel could do something similar.
Would you put Inez in that category? I feel like I've seen pretty good stuff about Inez as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're really
all those guys, I'm sure. Yeah,
high character. I would say Inez, an academic All-America, so he's smart. But I think the thing with Inez that makes him unique and different from some of these other guys is he's the instigator.
Yeah,
he's the guy always talking trash, and he brings that element to the offensive line, which is huge. Bell, more of a quiet personality, but I wouldn't say he's a gentle giant. I mean, he's not someone you have to convince to be physical. I mean, did you see that rep where he just tossed that guy?
Yeah. I think that was what made me watch the Miami film from this week. I think my favorite part about Bell is anytime I can see a picture of him standing next to Alex Mirabal. that is just awesome.
Well, help me out with Bell, because, you know, you really are much better with the PFF grades than I am. I look at them, but I'm not as in tune with them. They're more just like kind of like if I see a lot of green lights or watch, or if there's a lot of red lights watch, it's more of that kind of thing for me. But from the grading standpoint, and I know there's been a progression in his grades too since he first got on the field. Like, what do you see from Bell from a college productivity standpoint? And of course, you watch the film and you're an offensive line guru. Like, what do you see from Bell in terms of how he ranks just as a college player producer?
Yeah, I don't put a ton of stock into the run blocking grades, especially. I think, I don't know. I mean, FSU, I think, has been pretty solid in the run game this year, and they have like one guy over 60. So I don't trust those a ton. I do definitely put a lot of stock into the pass pro stuff. Oh yeah, Jawan Taylor, I like that. I can see that. I put a lot of stock into the pass pro stuff, and games against Florida and Florida State, he had an 88 plus pass pro grade in both of those games. That's probably, I mean, you're not being tested off the edge necessarily as much against Florida State. You know, Daryl Jackson is really the big name in that group, but Daryl Desir, they made Caden Proctor look a little bit silly. You know, obviously he's figured it back out, but he held his own and then some in those games. 0 pressures allowed on 60 combined pass pro snaps. So I think that's what's going to stand out to scouts is games like that. And like you said, if you can get into the playoff and get another test, that'd be huge for his resume. But just being the stone wall in pass pro that he's been this year, and the progression from last year, you know, 18 pressures last year, 3 sacks, 2 hits. This year, 0 sacks, 6 pressures, 1 hit. So he's really cleaned up his pass protection, and I think that's going to be a major selling point.
You know, it's gonna be interesting to see where that whole line gets drafted. I think you should see at least Cooper come on the board. Maybe maybe he's a early day 3, but
Yeah.
I think he's someone just will draft with a chance to be a starter. Markel Bell, I think in that range, and Mount Noah. I've heard people talked about him as maybe in the 20s, or I don't see that. I just think because even if you project him as a guard, I think he's still he's got a 1 in front of his draft spot, or he's getting drafted in the top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see him as a guard, and I would take him in the top 15 personally. I don't really care that he's a guard, and maybe he might be one of those guys that I'd let fail at tackle just because he's been doing it his entire college career, you know.
Right.
And maybe he's Will Campbell, so who knows? Do you think Sampson will go back to school?
Yeah, he should. He just needs reps,
Yeah.
and I think to get stronger.
Yeah.
And also, you know, he's a guard projection, so it's not like, you know, some of these tackles that are freaks of nature that just go like, what's his name, Amarius Wims from Georgia.
Yeah.
He's not that kind of guy. I think he just needs reps. He needs to get stronger. I think him and Matt McCoy doesn't get talked about as much on this offensive line, but seeing him in person, he's a lot bigger than people think. He's a former tight end. He moves a lot better. I think ultimately he's maybe replaces Markel Bell next year at left tackle and gets that resume. But he's, I think, a guy that we don't talk about him as a draftable guy, but I do think he is someone with an NFL future just because of the physical traits, and he's starting to pile up the reps.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Brockermeyer. I don't know if he's an NFL player, but he's certainly a good college player. And other than that, I mean, even if you take him out, you might still have 5 draft picks on this offensive line with McCoy and Okunlola together.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's definitely possible. We'll see how the season finishes. Maligned right now, the Miami offensive line struggling to run the ball. I think some of that's schematic, but you know they got to obviously they got to produce more in that aspect of the game. Wanted to circle back here to the skill positions, right? And somebody that I had not heard a lot about. You put him on my radar. Native of the Bronx, then goes to boarding school, the Taft School in Connecticut. And that is Skylar Bell at UConn. 6 foot, 185, redshirt senior. I don't know if it's 6 foot, but he certainly looks pretty sturdy. A former Wisconsin commit, 3-star player, like I mentioned, boarding school kid from the Bronx, and was decently. I mean, he played at Wisconsin. He had 69 receptions in 2 years, or it's like 3 years. But man, since he's gone to UConn, become the focal point, he has absolutely blown up, and a good reason maybe why you want to stay in a school that's throwing you the ball as opposed to portaling to be just another guy.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he had an amazing year last year. I forget who put him on my radar this summer, but I was really impressed with what he did last year. And then you have it here. He totally could have gone to the portal for a bigger school, probably made some more money. But as you said, I think it's going to look pretty dang good when he's got more production than a lot of these guys in this receiver class this upcoming year. Last year, 50 catches, 860 yards, 5 touchdowns in 13 games. Through 8 games this year, he's up to 66 catches, 845 yards, and 8 touchdowns. 10 for 125 and 1 against Boston College, 11 for 105 against Syracuse. So he plays up to the opponent that he's facing. And much like Jace Brown, who we talked about yesterday, kind of the big knock entering the year was he had chronic drop issues, 20 drops in his career, 14.5% drop rate. He's cut that down to 4.3% this year, just 3 drops.
Yeah, it's the production's crazy.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he is getting all these targets, right? I mean, how much do you value targets when you're evaluating a player here? I think a guy like this, again, I mentioned the opportunity he had to go in the portal and maybe lose targets, smart decision to stay at UConn, but just the ability to be targeted so often. I mean, how much of an indicator is it for you? Because it's something I personally look at pretty strong.
I think it's a major indicator. That's something that's probably going to translate. And I think that's kind of a misunderstood concept is, oh, this guy, he's getting force-fed the ball. Well, you don't just get thrown the ball. Like, you have to get open to get thrown the ball. So I think that's really, really a strong indicator for success at the NFL level. You have to get open. That's kind of the name of the game. And if you're, making a living off of contested catches, that kind of scares me away. So a guy like this who can make contested catches, I don't want to get that twisted, 56% this year, but a guy who can get this open, 91 targets in 8 games so far this year, it's a huge deal, I think, for his draft stock.
Yeah, what do you see with the stock and just the player? I mean, this guy's he's He's not a freshman, right? This is somebody who is a 5th-year senior, so you kind of know what you have here with the player. So, like, what are we dealing with? Like, what do you think his upside is, and just overall your evaluation of Skylar Bell, not just as a good player for UConn, but as a receiver that's in a draft class that could use a little juice.
Yeah, I think he could certainly sneak his way into day 2. But if my team drafts him on day 3, I would be over the moon excited. I think this is a guy who maybe you don't want to be your second option in a receiver room, but I think he would be a perfect like Z in most offenses. I'm looking here; he's pretty split between inside and outside snaps throughout his career. 39% in the slot this year. So yeah, pretty much his entire career, it's been around 60 to 40% slot and wide. So this is a guy who can play inside and outside. He kind of wins at all 3 levels of the field. Not really like a specialist in any way. He's just a really well-rounded player, and just I don't really know what my comp would be for him, but just like a classic Z receiver that's not he won't get this many targets in the NFL, I don't think, obviously, but a classic Z receiver. Yeah, he's got a 92 or 93 grade on these short passes. He's got 26 passes for 307 yards. So this is just a guy who can do a little bit of everything. I don't know if he has like total burners to take the top off the defense. I guess that would be one of my complaints, but just a really well-rounded receiver.
Yeah, the thing with him I want to see is the testing, right? Just how big is he? Is he actually 185? That would certainly be a good indicator if he's in that 185, 190 range, over 5'11". Just how quick and explosive is he? How athletic is he really? I think he looks pretty quick and fast on tape, but he had a long one last game.
Yeah.
You look at the production against BC and Syracuse, 125 against BC, 10 catches, 11 catches against Syracuse, 105 yards. So you can put him in the ACC and you would see no drop-off, I think, in his ability to get open and make plays. So, yeah, just the athleticism part with him, because he is not 6'2", right? He's going to have to show some bursts. Curious what his jumps are, just what his overall explosiveness is. But on tape, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I do think he probably wins more with just like his technique at this point, just being a guy who's been in college for so long. You think of DK at Wisconsin. I'm sure they overlapped, but that's a guy who came to Florida. He was like, no technique. He's like, I'm just going to run past you. So
right.
maybe that's a sign of the UConn receiver development or something like that. But maybe that's why he stuck around, just to take that next step. I think he's a really refined player right now, and he's a guy who you could probably expect to plug into your rotation as soon as he steps into the NFL.
An interesting player to watch, Skylar Bell. Let's pull some highlights up, because we've been kind of light on the highlights when describing his game.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to pull up some all 22 as we watch here.
Yeah, I was listening to this Daft on Draft podcast. I think they described this as Greg Jennings put the team on my back performance in this Syracuse game. He had like half of his team's total receiving yards or something like that, and really just kept them in this game, and they really shouldn't have been.
You can see how quarterback friendly he is.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. He's just getting open,
And look, I understand Syracuse is not a great team this year, but these are ACC athletes. Syracuse has had some good defensive backs. You see that catch, that one-hander?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the reason why we're talking about him, not just the production he's had throughout the year, but this outstanding performance against Syracuse. His releases are nice. I mean, he really is a well-schooled receiver. Yeah, no,
I think another thing that you just have to be encouraged about is
out of the backfield.
Fact that they're using him, or they're leaning on him in these big games against Power 4 opponents. It's very similar to Harold Finn, and last year, had his 2 best games against Notre Dame and A&M, I think it was, and Penn State and A&M, I think. But yeah, like that's about as close as you're going to see when you're playing for UConn to the NFL level. So for them to lean on him so heavily, he gets so many targets in those games. I saw he had 7 catches last year when they played Duke. So this is a running theme with him, and they seem to have a lot of trust in Skylar Bell. So I think he checks basically every box that you would want to see from a guy who's like a day 3 group of 5 receiver. Everything you would want to see to hope that translates. He wins in so many different ways. He's quarterback friendly. He gets all these targets. He plays up to his competition. I don't think you really need to worry too much about the jump in level of competition, assuming he checks the combine boxes like we mentioned.
Yeah, no, it's the drop rate you posted, 14.5% down to 4.3%. He still, to me, does seem a little bit. I mean, he has good hands, but it's not like the most natural plucking that they have seen for guys that size. And so the drop rate would be a concern. You want to see if that's an actual change that he just worked through, or if, maybe a sample size deal. It's only half the season in the books. So that's something that would I'll say concern me, but that I'd be watching as he goes through workouts in the rest of the year. But a very, very interesting player, and a guy that's going to definitely get some draft buzz. Somebody who absolutely will be getting draft buzz and is extremely just fun to watch with his athleticism is Prince Will. And I'll let you hit the last name. I should have learned this after his brother, but Prince Will.
Ahmmon Richards.
Boom. There you go. So man, this Ole Miss program, you look at what they've done in the portal as far as getting defensive linemen. Defensive linemen, they say, are the hardest guys to get in the portal, like NFL quality players. So I think that's pretty accurate. But still, you look at what they've done between Walter Nolan, right, between his brother Princely, Big East. Those are all portal guys that got drafted. And then here, University of Nebraska transfers, we watch his highlights from high school, and that has become a complete disruptor.
Yeah, I mean, he's just so athletic for that size. I was doing a little victory lap the other day. I'm taking anything I can get with this Nebraska debacle over at FSU. I'd like to let the record show, even though I've defended James Williams, who was the one who ended up choosing FSU. Prince Will was my top target from Nebraska. And they sure could use him, because right now in Tony White's defense, they don't have a guy to play that jack linebacker spot. That's where Prince Will was playing pretty heavily last year at Nebraska. It was just so obvious that he's going to be a good player. It's a lot like Princely at Florida. There was some criticism from Nebraska fans, he doesn't try in the run game. I remember that being the exact same story with Florida fans and Princely. Yeah. So he certainly tried when he went to Ole Miss, and I think Prince Will has as well. He's just such a versatile athlete that you can really have fun with on defense. You can use him in so many different ways. They haven't dropped him in coverage nearly as much as he did at Nebraska, but one play that will always stick out to me is his freshman year, and Tony White was very complimentary of this rep, but he drops into coverage and just triggers downhill and levels a defender on a wheel route pass in the backfield. So he's just a freak athlete, and he only has one start this year against Kentucky, so he's got another year of eligibility. He's almost certainly going to come back and use that year, but big game this weekend, 7 pressures, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. He made a huge impact. I mean, you could probably call him the MVP of the game for Ole Miss, I think, against Oklahoma.
Yeah, those freshman tackles for Oklahoma having a tough time there with this kind of athlete, but
they're exciting though. They are exciting.
No doubt. And listen, if you're Lane Kiffin, right? Obviously, we know he's going to be the story of the offseason, given that LSU is now open. You have Florida open. Auburn's got money to spend. Ole Miss is a top 10 program right now. They're probably going to make the playoffs, so they're going to have their say in this whole deal. Either way, he's going to get paid. But I think if he's marketing himself, and Penn State, never heard him really tied to Penn State, but you would think he kind of fits what they want given their offensive struggles. But anyways, whatever program you get Lane Kiffin, the offensive stuff will be there. He'll help your quarterback. He might take one, given that he has 2 right now at Ole Miss. But his ability to find these NFL defensive linemen in the portal, I think, is a difference-making skill set, given that he's going to, if you're a new coach, the first thing you probably want to rebuild is that defensive line as fast as you can. It's going to get you on the winning track faster than any other position. So he can maybe do that at a school like a Florida, where he already has good players there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you worry about the sustainability, but it's a lost start right now. He's doing what Mike Norvell did at the start of the portal era, except we're in the NIL era, we're fully in the portal era, and that's kind of dried up for every other team, unless you're Texas Tech or something and want to spend the big bucks. But you don't really see schools that can just completely transform a position group with the portal these days, and that's exactly what Lane's done 2 years in a row. And you lose those 3 guys that we mentioned in the portal to the draft, and I mean, I don't see a massive drop off, honestly. I mean, that was a really good defensive line. It's hard to replicate that, but the defensive line has not been an issue as far as I can tell. Maybe Ole Miss fans would totally disagree with me, but I think they hit once again, and you're right. That's a totally huge deal for if he leaves. bringing in a guy who in the portal that can play, So it's big, I think, really. And he's got other guys, what's Xavier Harris, the big 6'8", 330-pound defensive tackle. He was a high school recruit, but he's got a little bit of a mix now.
What's the number number 52, Eccles?
Will Eccles.
He was impressive. I looked him up because I didn't remember him before seeing him here this year, and he's a high school recruit as well.
Yeah, 8 pressures in his last 2 games against Georgia and Oklahoma. So
so that
I would be. I mean, we've talked about it. I think Lane's probably the top guy on the market, and I would be super excited if my school hired him.
And look, Ole Miss might just say, "Listen, you get defensive linemen here."
Yeah,
both portal and now that we mentioned homegrown. As I look at this, we talked about Eccles. You mentioned Harris. He also has Cam Franklin, who was a big recruiting battle that he won to keep him home in Mississippi. We know Mississippi has a lot of talented defensive linemen, probably per capita. I mean, shoot, I think of Simmons at in Tennessee. I think of Chris Jones in Kansas City. I believe they're both Mississippi 5-stars. Correct me if I'm wrong. So Mississippi produces defensive linemen from high school. So the fact that you're not, it's not an era where back in the day you'd say, okay, Ole Miss versus Alabama, you can have a cute offense, whatever, but Alabama's always going to be able to recruit all the best defensive linemen. At the end of the day, they're going to steamroll you with those guys. That was the old model, right? When maybe Hugh Freeze was at Ole Miss. But you look at it now. I mean, is there any reason why Ole Miss can't have a defensive line that's as good as anybody in the SEC, which typically translates into a national championship contender?
Yeah, I mean, with the way that Lane's been recruiting, I don't know if they'd sustain it if he left, but I think if he does leave, he's changed that program and put them up a tier in the SEC.
Well, before you get, what I'm saying is he doesn't have to leave. Assuming that he can get a raise out of Ole Miss to match what other teams are trying to pay him. Like, the old idea would be he has to leave to recruit the defensive line first rounders that you need to win a championship coming out of the SEC. The guys that always go to Alabama, maybe sometimes will go to LSU, and certainly Georgia had their run with those guys. But what I'm saying is, if you look at what he had last year with Walter Nolan and some of these guys, look at this year's defensive linemen. You look at some of the young homegrown guys. You look at what the state has typically produced that has gone to Alabama, Georgia, or Mississippi State in the case of Simmons and Jones. Like, you could have a championship caliber defensive line at Ole Miss based on what I'm seeing and guys like Prince will, and then you still do what you do on offense with full autonomy, and we've seen him do it successfully with now Division II quarterbacks. So why not just do it at Ole Miss if you can have the money, getting guys like Prince will?
I think that's probably going to be part of Ole Miss's pitch to Lane to keep him around is, that this is you've shown that you can do this to some extent. Now let's take it to the next level. Let's increase the funding. Let's really take over the state, because you're totally right. There's some really, really impressive athletes in the state of Mississippi. And I mean, they showed it by getting a guy named Franklin top 80 recruit last year. Or 2 years ago it was.
Yeah, no, it's a fun team to watch. I think that's that. We talk about Trinidad so much, and with good reason, but this defensive line, I'm glad you highlighted them, because they got some dudes that are going to be playing on Sundays and they're making a lot of plays on Saturday. They're going to really help Ole Miss get over the hump that they probably should have gotten over last year with the roster they had and some of the defensive linemen they had there on that team. But let's close off here with a player that's interesting to me because he was not on my radar at all. And I looked into kind of his production this year. He's really just starting now to get into the production mode, but you highlighted him quickly. You want to talk about him, and I'll let you handle the pronunciation. Is it Zadrius?
I think so.
Zadrius Rainey Sale. Zadrius Rainey Sale out of Spanaway, Washington.
Yeah, so linebacker out of Washington. I was a really big fan of this guy. He was one of the few linebackers that FSU whiffed on in his recruiting class. I think ultimately he didn't really want to leave home. His parents didn't really want him to leave home, so he stays in Washington. Top 100 player in the composite, top 5 linebacker, number 1 player in his state. He had a ACL tear after his season last year, his high school senior season. So he's missed a lot of time so far this year, but I think he's played in a few games now, and he's been really impressive when he's played. Wasn't able to find any clips from this season, but he's been targeted 7 times this year. He's allowed 4 catches, but on those other 3 targets, they've all been pass breakups. So he's got 3 pass breakups on the year. 6'3", 225-pound linebacker. He just looks the part, man.
He could rush the passer too, right?
Yeah, no. So my high school comp for him was Jihad Campbell, just a guy who he can rush the passer. He can trigger downhill in the run game. He can turn and run with receivers. So he's just what it looks like. I think he probably is one of the higher end talents on that Washington roster right now, if I had to bet.
Yeah, and it's that Washington team coming off a huge performance against Illinois. Here's Jed Fish on Zadra. Says, I thought he did a good job playing linebacker in 3 deep zone. He did it right. He's very athletic. He's got great size. He continued to show us he's improving. He's had 27 plays in this game. For someone who didn't have a training camp, didn't have a spring ball, pretty fun to watch him get better and better every week as he rebounds from that ACL tear. But man, super talented guy. And just watching those highlights, you see the speed and the burst. Washington's kind of like Ole Miss. Fish is going to be on a lot of lists, but then you say, all right, well, look, Washington's getting a lot of pros. I mean, their draft history, if you look at their first round history going back a few years, really a few coaches, they've been, to me, one of the better producers of not just NFL talent in bulk, but high-end guys that can get drafted first round or higher. And I think this is a guy that has those tools.
Yeah, they have that 5-star offensive tackle commit, right?
Yep.
So yeah, there's certainly guys out on the West Coast, and
Cody Green.
Cody Green. These West Coast teams, UCLA, USC, maybe not Oregon recently, but they're always kind of bouncing around. Are they back? Are they not back? How serious are they about football? At any time, if one of these schools just wants to really commit and really go after a lot of these high-end recruits out on the West Coast, they can do it, So don't let these guys get away. And I think you're totally right. I think it's very similar to Ole Miss. And I mean, Washington's had success. I'm sure their fans know what it looks like and they want to support that again. So I think you're totally right. It's very possible that we don't see Jed Fish leave just because of that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their draft history and I'm just raw counting. Since 2015, so let's say 10 years ago, I'm counting 11 first rounders. I mean, look at this, obviously this national championship team right here where you have a receiver, quarterback, and an offensive lineman, plus, Rosengarten's playing very well. A couple other receivers here getting drafted on day 2. McDuffie, as good as any cornerback in the pros. Kyler Gordon, another good talent there. Physically, that they produced very good defensive backs. Cade Otton's had success. Joe Tryon. These are high picks, not just first rounders, but day 2 guys as well. Offensive line, they had it with McGarry. Vita Vea, we know what he is. Going all the way down here, this class. Shaq Thompson, maybe Shaq Thompson a little bigger, a little smaller than what we're talking about here with Zadra, but talk about a guy who can run and make athletic plays. That was one. So with Zadra, what you've seen, I mean, I know it's early to project, but why are you so intrigued by this player that you highlighted him in a week where he's still getting his snaps up?
Yeah, I just think we're seeing just the start of it, and I think last year's recruiting linebacker class was about as talented as you'll ever see. Just there's a lot of guys with so much potential. Ty Jackson at Florida, Tavion Wallace at Arkansas, although maybe entering the portal now with the coaching change. But there's just so many guys who are extremely physically gifted, and this is a guy. I see there's so many paths to him becoming a good player. He's so good in so many different ways. And he's got long arms. He's got speed. He's just got every tool that you would want. And to see him bounce back from that injury, playing so well so early, getting that praise from his head coach, I think we might want to get ahead of this one before he really goes national.
That's what we're trying to be. We want to be the first video on some of these players that we go back and look on. And this guy really, I got to say, Fink, he is very. I had to watch him in the Washington game and really key in on him because the high school stuff is absurd. Yeah. And the fact that he's playing, that was a real game, right, that he was playing in. It's not like they're playing him against the FCS opponent trying to get him going. So clearly they want to get him on the field. And, man, he has some stopping power as a tackler. The speed is there. You're seeing I can't stress this enough. And I don't think if you've seen this one, one exercise I like to do, I always talk about on this show, is I go back and I'll watch high school highlights from guys that get drafted first round just to see what the kind of common things that jump out are and calibrate the eyes a little bit when you watch so many of these idle videos. With the defensive players that get drafted first round, and I'm talking about whether it's a defensive tackle or a corner and everything in between, touchdowns on offense.
Yeah.
I very rarely will see a first round defensive player that is not scoring touchdowns on offense, really, and defense in his high school clips. I mean, even Vita Vea, speaking of Washington, was a like option quarterback. If you watch his clips, like wildcatting it in there. It seems like they all do it. And you see it here with him playing some tight end.
Yeah, so 13 catches for 230 yards and 4 touchdowns as a junior. So this is definitely a guy who played both ways. He's just such a good athlete, man. I keep saying that, but I really don't see what he can't do on the football field if he continues to progress. And I know he's a linebacker, but I think he has the tools to be a late round 1 guy if he really reaches his ceiling. And we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
You know, he's in his 3rd game. He might not even be a 3rd-year declaree. He might transfer, but the tools are very evident with Zadrius Rainey. So,
well, you heard it here first with Fink. When this is your next first round linebacker out of Washington. Wow, man, look at that play! Holy moly, big time athlete. I'm co-signing. I got to watch this guy. I'm gonna make sure I record watching his game next week because I got to see this guy in action. Zadrius, get the name right here. Zadrius Rainey Sale out of Spanaway, Washington. Fink, I think you got one.
I think so. He looks like it.
All right, guys. Remember to like and subscribe to Group Chat Sports. We are talking all kinds of college football, whether it's, freshman that's playing 20 snaps or some of the stars of the game, transfer portal movement, recruiting, coaching movement. We'll have it all for you on Group Chat Sports Live. Remember to like and subscribe to Group Chat Sports. If you're joining us from CanesInSight, we do this a few times a week, man. Just give you the college football stuff on top of your Canes stuff so you can see who's next in the world of college football. Get your tampering in early. But again, appreciate everybody joining us. Like and subscribe. We'll see you later.
See ya.